Well, Jess, do you want to tell us a bit about yourself and how you got to where you are today?
Okay, so a little bit about myself. I think I've been wanting to be in the industry since I was about 12 years old. Not many 12-year-olds really know what they want to do, but I was the only one sitting there and being like, you know what? I need to find myself a job and a career. What am I going to do? And the hospitality industry was what intrigued me the most. It started out with my brother um, going through cooking classes in high school, and I wanted to know and be everything that he knew and did, and I just want to be better than him. So it kind of started as a
Nice.
sibling rivalry, and but actually blossomed into something that I truly loved doing, and I've done it all throughout high school. During culinary, I did culinary competitions, and even after the culinary competitions in high school, I went to the Culinary of America in Hyde Park, New York. That was at least then considered. I mean, I still think it is now, but it's considered the Harvard of culinary schools.
Yeah.
So I was a chef for a little bit, and then some somebody told me that I could never be in front of the house, and so that made me angry. And I actually turned right
Go
around,
then.
dropped out of yeah, dropped out of the back of the house, and then went to the front of the house, and then I actually saw that gentleman like a year and a half later, and he's like, "Oh, what are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, hey, I actually train all the server staff and how to properly, serve people and everything like that." So that was pretty cool. And then now, I want to take a little bit of break from the industry because I'm like, all right, you know what? Let's see if I can do something else. I mean, turns out I can, but at the end of the day, I really miss the industry and I miss the hospitality and the craziness and all the anxiety that it can give you. And ever since then, I've just been back in the industry, and I don't think I would ever change it for anything now, to be honest.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you're now at NDM Hospitality, which is like BurgerFi amongst a bunch of other brands. Is that my understand? That's
Oh
my
yeah,
understanding.
like tons and tons of brands. We
Tons.
have
Yeah, huge business.
everything, yeah, from rental resorts like to actual resorts to now breaking into the food and restaurant business. And and with NDM Hospitality, they were like the number one franchisee for a few years running for
Yeah, that's
BurgerFi.
awesome.
So yeah, it was pretty
Exactly.
cool.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's awesome. We have so many burger brands in our portfolio itself. I feel like I'm testing new chicken sandwiches and different kinds of smash burgers all the time,
Oh yeah.
visiting our clients. But yeah, I guess the first question I want to ask you, and this is a real kind of like let's set the tone here, which is like, what do you think the three biggest challenges or roadblocks are in the hospitality space today?
The honestly, the one thing the biggest challenges is the people who want to work. I mean, generation by generation goes by. There's things that, each generation wishes, they did differently, or, each generation seems to be weaker and weaker from, the previous generation saying. However, I think this generation that is up and coming to, because I am a millennial, by far, and the generations below me, yes, like their work ethic is a little bit different, but I mean, it's not like it was. And I think COVID had a huge impact on it in general because we were stuck in our houses for months on end doing nothing, staring at the wall, watching Tiger King and doing everything we
Yeah,
can to like pass the day by. But at the end of the day, I mean, everybody came back from their essentially year-long vacation. It just nobody had that drive and workforce anymore, and a lot of it has to do with not only like I think COVID, but a lot of it has to do with like the generations and being like, or they're at a young age, and at that young age, their life completely stopped for a year. And I think that a little bit of both, and that's what they have to. That's what both um of those things have to deal with it, because that's the hardest part. It's trying to find people who, how do I put this? Trying to find people who want to have that mindset of working hard and wanting to do everything they can to get to the next level. Because, I mean, my mom always told me growing up that, you're always going to have your education and your career. So those are the two things that I kind of focused on my entire life, is just my education and my career, and trying to get to the next level every single day. But unfortunately, with trying to get to the next level, you need the help and everything from everybody else, because you just can't make it yourself. It takes people to help you to get to where you want to be. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, these days, a lot of people don't have that drive and will anymore to do all that.
And you're
So,
based in Orlando. You're in where where in
Orlando.
Florida?
Hmm.
You're in Orlando. Yeah. So, I mean,
Yeah.
enormous
Heart
hospitality
of
state.
tourist area.
Heart of
Like
tourism,
literally.
basically in the Southeast. Yeah. Like, and I've been twice myself, and I've been to all the theme parks as a child and an adult. So, like, I know them
Yeah.
well.
I'm
And,
in fact a
they know
Disney adult though too. So
you're, yeah, yeah,
I
born
am
and bred.
brainwashed to be a Disney adult. Yeah.
And I guess, like, to that exact point that you're just saying there, like, that, like, the culture, the work culture, and finding quality talent, that seems to be like the biggest challenge. They seem to be like almost like the two biggest challenges in hospitality at the moment.
Yeah. Most certainly. I mean, the biggest challenge is trying to find that personality that will like put in hours and want to work and want to be and want to go to that next level. I mean, I even meet some of my peers now that are at my level and I'm like, hey, what is your goal? What do you want to do? What do you want to be? And these people are sitting there and they're like, no, I'm okay. I'm good. And to
Yeah.
me, that's just you need to be able to, and if you want to go further and you want to go further, like any essentially go further in your career, you're gonna need people to surround yourself by people who want that drive and who want to be more and do more.
Yeah.
And it's just it's a little hectic because nobody, like I said, nobody these days, like there's a good portion of people who do want that work and do want to be able to get to the next level, but there's some people who are just content in staying at that level of where they're
Yeah.
at.
Absolutely. And I mean, I guess then probably my next question then is like, what are the sort of big differences between your sort of older, more established employees like yourself, and sort of Gen Z, so to speak?
So with those generations and it, like those
Because you
generations, we do
mentioned that,
have
yeah.
similar, yeah, we do have similar things. I mean, we laugh now that like us millennials will laugh now and be like, "Oh, you guys, this is fashion. This is like '90s, is like '90s fashion." So all the stuff that we wore in the '90s that we were forced to wear and all that stuff, like that's all going back. So we have those similarities, but the difference is between like these millennials, like as in us, and then somebody who's like a younger generation. When I look at my generation, I see that will and I see that need to work and be able to go to college and get everything done to make sure our parents are happy. But with the younger generations, when I look for employees, I look for employees like yes, they can still have that exuberant personality that they all do.
Yeah.
And then they're all in their person. They knew exactly who they are. They know what their worth is, which is pretty awesome. Which is honestly really pretty awesome to see. And I kind of wish that our generation had, like millennials, had a little more of that in us. However, I will look for employees that have that still little spark of being like, no, like I know who I am. I want to work. I want to get to the next level. So there's
Yeah.
actually quite a few employees that I do have that are younger generation that have that same mindset and same spark, and it's actually really cool to see
Okay,
that some things
awesome.
can
Yeah.
change them.
It's it's interesting you say that because I've spoken to a lot of people and they're probably like slightly more dismissive about Gen Z.
Yeah,
Um,
it's
which
it's a pick and choose. It's honestly that's realistically what it is. Like it's like everybody makes fun of millennials. Well, not everybody is a certain type of millennial. Not everybody is like a certain type of generation. So like me as a personality, I can sit with cowboy boots on and go to a country concert, and then I can be found at like a Blink 182 concert with Converse on and like stuff like that. So
yeah,
I
I mean that
I
makes
find a
sense.
way to like meld. Yes, I find a way to meld into like each generation, and it's not like your parents trying to fit in to be cool. Like no, they actually do have other ideas. Like they're just not stuck in other people's ways. And so when you let
Yeah, I guess.
them
One second.
live and create, it becomes a better work environment.
Yeah, totally. I guess like what I'm getting at is like I suppose when I ask about Gen Z, what I really mean is like the young people coming into the workplace in hospitality, like
Yeah.
say post COVID. Because obviously like before COVID, like I talked to a lot of people about like how they're what the expectations of that younger workforce is now that they're in the workforce. Working
Mm-hmm.
like is there like do you see like a large difference in what they ask or how they behave versus how you or your peers would as a millennial say 10 years ago, 10, 15 years ago to like what you see the work ethic of like sort of more older,
Oh,
senior, tenured people?
like the difference is to me it's a little crazy because like millennials as general like as that generation, we never really we started kind of, at least I think I would, we started kind of testing the limits and testing the like, okay, maybe one little step here, see if they get mad. No, we'll see
Yeah.
what happens. But we never dared to do half the stuff that this generation is doing. So like back to the one I said, like this generation knows who they are and knows what their worth is. Doesn't mean every generation knows who they are, but it's just they're not afraid to ask for it. But
Yeah.
to be
Interesting.
honest, and my thing is they're not afraid to ask for it. But then again, from coming from my side, how I treat all of my employees, like, they want to do something, sure, that's great. Like I have no problem training you, developing you into whatever you want to be, even if it's not sticking around with me. But you're gonna have to be willing to put the work into it. And in the beginning, I get a little bit of pushback from that generation. Like, they're not used to that much work. They're not used to any of that. But
Yeah.
I'm trying to hit them with a hard reality and be like, look, I can't soften you guys anymore. You guys were pretty softened with COVID and everything else. And it's just, I know what you guys want to do and what you want to be, but you're going to have to meet us halfway in the middle. So
That's fair. That's interesting. And that's a unique take in the sense I haven't really heard people articulate it that way before. I'm sure people are
yeah,
doing it that way, but I feel like when I ask that question, people are a bit more dismissive than you. So
yeah.
good for you for having a kind of difference, a different kind of opinion on
I
that.
it's just it's realistically it comes down to like just having my personality, my opinion comes down to like me working in different positions. So I mean, I worked in different positions at different ages. So I know exactly, what my mindset it was at that age.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily a generational thing, it's an age thing. I mean, if you think about it, 18 years old, I mean, I was 18 years old and my first job, well, this is probably 16, yeah, 16 years old, my first job was Panera. I thought I was the
Yeah.
most badass person ever to live because like I got a job, I got that, I made $8 an hour. So now, like going back then, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I thought I was the shit, and I thought I was something that like could be untouchable, and that's
Yeah.
exactly what you have to put your mindset into. That it's not necessarily generational. I mean, every generation has their own thing. It's just the age
Yeah.
difference.
That's
And
fair.
what do you want to do? I wanted to go out and party with my friends when I was 16, 17 years old and drive around in cars and stuff like that. Like, not really go to work. I just wanted to work for money.
Totally. I mean, don't we all?
Yeah.
Um, I guess the next question, I mean, on that is like, what do you see like are emerging trends? Like reduced staff, like different opening hours, that kind of stuff. What are you seeing like in where you're working today?
As like the restaurant business as an industry, like what are the
Yeah.
industry trends, what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So a lot of the trends I'm actually seeing is ironically a lot staff wise, a lot of more staff wants to work in the morning time and never night because for some reason a lot more staff wants to like stay home and be home at night, which is completely different from and which is before COVID when everybody's like, no, I'll take the night shift. I don't know, nobody wants a day shift. Nobody wants a day shift. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, all right, that's pretty crazy to me. So that makes me like, no, night shift's the one that should make the most money. But yeah, day shifts are more calm and cool, collected, and just relaxed, which I get. But our industry trends are just currently still trying to do like a lot more fusion stuff. So, like example, one of the restaurants that I oversee is a barbecue restaurant, and my bosses and I were in charge of redeveloping menus, and they're like, what if we have some Southwestern flair on it? I'm like, okay, all right, Southwestern flair. Like they wanted me. One of my things I make more than anything is tamales. So my husband
Okay.
is Mexican, and I met him at culinary school actually. So he was a chef. But now he actually runs runs one of the top craft breweries in Mexico.
Oh,
So
nice.
he oversees a lot of production and everything else like that. So and I always try to influence, like make sure his culture is not forgotten in our lives just because he's over here. So one of my favorite things I make is my tamales, and everyone's like, oh, what if we make a barbecue tamale? I'm like, okay guys, listen, you can't bastardize the Mexican cuisine and culture with
American
barbecue,
cuisine.
okay? Yeah. So apparently in Mexico, and I thought it was hilarious. In Mexico, they do the same thing with American cuisine. They kind of super Mexicanize it, and I was like, at what point do you put extra sauce on a pizza or it's like something like that? And it was or something with a burger, and I'm like, you do not put that on a burger, but I guess I mean if that's what you want to do, go ahead. So, there's a lot of those things, and then I will definitely see trends of non chain restaurants, um, things that are just niches and things that you cannot find anywhere else. I mean, especially me as myself as a person with a culinary background, I'm gonna go look for the things that are the most authentic and the most completely different than just like your mainstream brands. So, or even if it is a mainstream brand, it's got to be unique. Something like BurgerFi, where it's not just okay, here's a single patty and cheese and onions and go buy. They take the time to use the fresh products and use the ingredients that need to be to make a spectacular meal. Because anything starting
I'll
from
have to come
meals
to
like
Florida.
basic ingredients. Yeah.
I'll have to.
Yeah.
I'll have to get out of the cold
It's pretty
Northeast.
good. We're out in the Northeast.
I moved to New York on Saturday. I was living
Okay.
in San Francisco for the last 8 years, and moved in with my missus.
So do me a favor, in New York, where in New York? Are you going to the city?
I'm in Brooklyn.
Okay, yeah. So do me a favor, go take a train, because you can go to Grand Central, take a train to my culinary school. So that's my alma mater is. And
the culinary, I've seen the Bear, so I can see. I know that everyone in the Bear went to the culinary.
The Bear is a true life. If you have to work in this, if you're gonna take any quote from this, it's gonna be this: the Bear is a true life story of the restaurant business. Like every day, like one of my friends and I, we were watching it, and we're like, this is kind of giving us PTSD from when we were in kitchens. Like,
oh my god, that episode. The one with where they launched the Uber Eats or they launched the DoorDash.
Oh,
and it's just the one camera in the kitchen, and they
that
mess up
happened to me almost at one time. Like my Uber Eats camera was off. Oh my gosh. And like I looked it up and it was a busy day and I had like 20 orders. I'm like, well, we're gonna have to hold the door. And it was just
exactly. It's like how do we get out 500 bags of fries, and how do we do 75 sandwiches in the next 20 minutes? Yeah, nuts. I had anxiety watching it.
Yep, that is 100% that anxiety.
And I suppose on the topic of tech, then, and we're talking about emerging trends, in the restaurant hospitality space. What's like the emerging tech that's exciting you?
I'm sorry, was emergency what?
What's the emerging tech that's in hospitality that's exciting you?
The technology. Okay. Yep. One of my favorite things I love is I'm kind of a technology wise, I don't mind certain things like Uber Eats, Chow Now, like that really drives revenue in a couple different restaurants by like 30 to 40%. Like it's pretty crazy. Let alone in my restaurant on some days, like it'll have like that's where a good portion of our sales come from, is just that Uber Eats and Chow Now, the goes, like all of that. But technology trend, one of my favorite things, and I kind of nerd out about at all times, is a ticket system like that's digital. So when you're on the line, instead of printing out the old school tickets like they did in the Bear, you have the screens on both front expo and back expo. Yeah. And you can just bump it, you can go back to it. The ticket's never lost, anything like that. And I just kind of nerd out about it. And sometimes I'll send tickets to the window to be like, ooh, okay, what is that? What is that? What is that? What is that? And the first time I actually ever saw that, I kind of turned into a game of being like, okay, hey, I want this meal in like 4 minutes. I'm like, I can do it in 3 minutes and 45 seconds. So that mixed with our tablets nowadays that you can just bring to the table and put your order in right there.
Yep.
Those are one of my favorite ones because that cuts down server time exponentially. So you can put the order in right there at the table. So there's no mix up, no mistakes, no losing those checks, like I said again. Because going to a table after my server losing a check is the most fantastic experience I could ever tell you. It's great. Like, hey guys, sorry, we lost your checks. Like, I'll leave something honest with my table.
Yeah.
But it's like the tablets that come to like that go to the tables along with that computerized ticket screen, those two working simultaneously together are flawless, beyond flawless.
Awesome. And I guess then I suppose like kind of segueing there in terms of from the technology to like a kind of broader market question is like, what's your take on the hospitality job market? I know you're in Florida, so obviously you have a very like Floridian, Orlando sort of taking it, but like, do you think it's strong? Do you think it's weak, or what's your take on it?
So I think right after COVID, I think the market was strong. And I think that really the hospitality industry and market itself for jobs, I think I think it's based around the economy, really. Because when the economy, goes down a little bit, nobody wants to go out and spend money. And it's essentially the industry will thrive, and I think thrives more when the economy is up for obvious reasons, because everybody wants to go out and spend money. So it kind of really does hurt the industry when the economy is down, because like trying to find hospitality jobs is just crazy to me. I mean, I live in the hospitality capital of the world. Like there's no the tourist capital. Like, I mean, you've got 4 different theme parks from me in like less than 45 minutes. So
Yeah.
all of that, like you would think you'd be able to find like certain different jobs, but as you grow older, like all these jobs that they have are just like the entry level jobs, not stuff that's like, a little higher end or higher level. I mean, it's just it's crazy to see. Like I'll get on my LinkedIn, I'll just get notifications about different job opportunities and being able to do like certain different things. And it's rarely for the higher level positions, it's open in Orlando at least. Your entry level positions can always be open, but when it comes to the higher level ones, it's kind of very hard to find something that's kind of worth the money and then the title itself, if
That's
that makes sense.
interesting. That's interesting you say that. I was chatting with somebody today who was in Pittsburgh for one of these episodes as well. And they were saying that like it's just really hard to find the kind of more senior kind of talent, like the general manager and above talent to run
Yeah.
restaurant franchises. Like he's like he was like in a hotel, but like same kind of thing for hourly workers, like the kind of staff you need is like he can find them, but it's like finding people that are kind of like the type of experience that he needs is
Yeah.
like harder in of itself. Like, one of the things we see at Land is, and that we've seen
Yeah.
in like the data is that people have like since COVID, that level of experience that you would like naturally see mature into those roles kind of disappeared and either left the market because COVID
Well,
opening, closing, or went to like Amazon, DoorDash, Uber Eats
yeah.
because
And
get paid
one of
more
the
and less stressful environments,
Well, I mean, also the other thing is too, like this is the one I'm a huge fan of, and because I mean, this is how I think and the way I think this is how things should be run. If you have somebody applying for a position that is not necessarily doesn't have that experience, but you feel like you can interview them and mold them into it, then I 100% believe that that is the best way to go, because you can only grow within a company. And when
Yeah.
you feel like when a worker is feel like they're growing within a company, they're willing to stay more and longer. Um, like that's honestly how I got my different positions. I mean, if you take a look at my resume, I mean, with Seal Street Blues Company, I did not want to become a manager at that point. I just was like, I'm just going to become a server and a bartender and just work at this one place and just do what I want to do and just chill for a little bit and then go find my career. Well,
Yeah.
3 months in, the owner of the company, he is no longer with us. He did pass away in 2021. 3 months in, he's like, you know what, Jessica, I like you. You want to become a manager? And I'm like, okay, all right, cool. Because you can't really say no to the CEO of the company. So
Yeah. Tell me about it.
and I became a bar manager, and one of our two general managers were leaving within that company, and I told him, I was like, hey, you know what? Let me try for the general manager position. I've never been a general manager before. I've never done anything like that, but if you have faith in me, I'm willing to do all the hard work and everything I can to get into it. And you know what? They did, and that's kind of why I stayed with them for as long as I could until NDM actually took us over. So
which is interesting. I was gonna
yeah.
say, because one of the things that like we hear a lot of landed is like, post COVID, there was the rush to hire. Everybody needed bodies, and like now the question is like
It's
quality,
the
but like
bodies, it's the right bodies. Yeah.
yeah, I was just gonna
You
say
can
like
hire
quality
somebody
is
off the
what we,
street. Yeah. Like
and
my
with
restaurant
that as
itself, I
well.
have
Also,
almost zero turnover. I have almost zero
yeah,
turnover in my restaurant
and that's what I was
because
gonna.
of
That's what I was gonna ask.
that
That's what I was
factor,
gonna
because
ask
of
you.
quality.
And that's the thing. That's
Yeah,
what I was going to ask you as my last question, which is about like retaining staff. And that seems to
so
me the emerging question for probably the next 6 months is like how to train people is so expensive and get them stood up. So hiring for quality will drive up your acquisition costs because it's just you're trying to find that really good person. But then it's like, how
yeah.
do you retain that person in that job? And so my question to you is like, do you have a process for like, what's your kind of process for retaining staff? Like, do you have specific perks or
So
policies that you use?
so when I train my staff, like I said, I have almost no turnover. The only turnover I have is somebody leaving to go to college. That's
Yeah.
really it. And that was probably like one person and then like one other person moving. But yeah, that's realistically the only turnover I had. But and I've only had to fire one person in the past 2 3 years. So I mean, that's to me, I think that's crazy. So,
Yeah.
but the way my staff is with their training wise, I give them a little bit of everything. So, like my example, my front of house staff, if they don't know what the menu is, they're gonna go back in the kitchen with the chef, and they're gonna help, you know, learn the dishes and everything that from the chef. They're gonna learn what our expo does, coming from the window into the table. They're gonna learn every position and what it takes to do what that position does. Because, sometimes in the industry, front of the house and back of the house have that quarrel essentially, where front of the house isn't like back house isn't like front of the house, blah blah blah. My my entire staff has a mutual respect for each other because on slower days I've thrown them into other places and I'm like, no, look, this is what you're gonna learn today, and I'm trying to push them to do and be more. And one of the things that I do teach and I preach to them is that, like I said before, if they want to learn something, like say one of my servers wants to learn bartending, sure, by all means, let's cross train you because you know what, that can only help me later on.
Yeah.
And it's one
That's
of those
awesome.
things that's not like a dedicated shift, and like I can give them a dedicated shift, but like I want to be able to have them here like 5 minutes. Okay, here, do me or like throw me a single pour, throw me a double pour, throw me a 2 ounce pour, and I keep telling them
That's
like, no,
awesome.
this is what it is. Yeah, and the best way to, I think, is to train people is to essentially tell them why, because people are more willing to learn and understand what you're doing if you tell them why we do it. Hey, we put the salt on this side, we put pepper on this side, we put this on this side because of this reason. We have these here because of this reason. This is our steps of service because of this reason. You know, Instead of just telling people, hey, this is what you gotta do, this is what you gotta do, this is what you do, like people are more turned off by that, but they're more willing to learn and um dive in deep when it comes to training if you tell them why. And they're pretty much, I call my entire staff my family, like my children. So
Yeah.
one of my operations manager is mom, and then apparently I'm the head of the household. I'm dad. So I'll go under like, what your child did today? I was like all that fun stuff. And so, but I mean, there was a point in time where I almost got transferred to a new location, and my entire staff, once I found out, they kind of had to a mental breakdown. They're like, what is going on? Why are you doing this? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, guys, relax. It's fine. So that's the best way I can say it realistically is just, to retain the staff, you just got to tell them why and what's going on and not promise them. I don't make empty promises to my staff. I tell them like it is, how it is at all times. Because I think lying to your staff is only going to catch up to you and make you look more of a worse person. So I am more realistic with them. I'm like, look, this is the reality of it. This is what we have to do. This is why we're doing it. And if you're more real with your staff and more honest and open about it, then they are more willing to do things for you. And then, giving them parts of training manuals. Like, hey, look, this is our training manual. What do you think is missing from this? Give them pieces and parts of the restaurant that they can help mold and
feel
be
like
better.
They have some ownership over it.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Because when they have ownership, it's gonna be great. And that's part of the reason why is we sit them down and we have meetings with them quarterly. And I'm like, hey, this is what you guys can do better, but what can we do better as managers? And I'd make my executive chef write one do one with his back of the house staff. I make, my operations manager do one. So everything. So
that's
we're
awesome.
all just constantly learning, growing, and being better. Yeah.
I'm actually making a note of that for my own team. Learn something everywhere.